Many will be watching this week to see what impacts newly approved U.S. aid will have in Ukraine's defense against Russia. Just days ago, U.S. President Joe Biden signed an aid bill into law that will send more than $60 billion in military support to Ukraine. It comes after months of inertia in Congress, a delay that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says cost lives. Poland, which shares a border with Russia and has been a staunch supporter of Ukraine, will be closely monitoring what happens next. That country's President, Andrzej Duda, is a controversial figure in Poland. He campaigned on anti-LGBTQ messaging, for example, and has undertaken reform of the judicial system the EU has characterized as undermining its independence. But he's also the country's most ardent advocate for supporting Ukraine, and he's taken that message all over the world. He was in Canada this past week after traveling to the U.S. and meeting with former President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson. Days after those meetings, the House approved the Ukrainian aid. I had the chance to speak to President Duda through a translator while he was in Edmonton to attend the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. I started off by asking him if that U.S. aid could change the trajectory of the war.
This aid is absolutely indispensable right now, and I'm really delighted that the decision was made. It is crucial. I'm happy about that because it means that Ukraine will be able to put up an efficient resistance to Russian aggression. There is a huge threat of Russian offensive in the near future on the front line against Ukraine, and that offensive have to be stopped at all costs because, as I repeated and keep repeating, and especially I've been telling this to American politicians recently, we have to stop Russian imperialism. Russian imperialism cannot win, because if Russian imperialism wins in Ukraine, it will go further because it is insatiable. It will devour more states and more nations.
Some of the issue in the U.S., the sort of stagnation, the blocking of the aid, came from people who are very much influenced by the former President Donald Trump. You met with him very recently. Do you think he has changed his opinion about why support for Ukraine is necessary?
It is difficult for me to talk about it. Indeed, we had a conversation with President Donald Trump. That was a friendly meeting, I can describe it like that. And I was happy with the invitation because I had the opportunity to give him my view as a neighbor of Ukraine, the view of the situation. I could describe to him the situation as it is, and simply I did it because I believe that that was my task at the moment, even more so that he asked me about it.
I think that's why I'm asking, because out of that meeting, he said something he's never said before, which is that he believes the survival of Ukraine is important to the U.S. In fact, he was saying things very different than that prior to the meeting that you held, and he expressly told his supporters in Congress to block that bill because he wanted immigration to be part of the election campaign. I guess that's why I'm wondering if you believe that his mind has been changed or if that is at all possible.
I'm convinced that President Donald Trump has been seeing the situation all the time in the same way, that to make Ukraine defend itself from the Russian aggression, this is in the strategic interest also of the United States of America. I don't have doubts about that. But indeed, I said what I'm repeating, generally speaking, to all American politicians, namely that today the Ukrainians, while defending their homeland, if they receive support, they can stop Russian imperialism and they can stop a potential war. If they are not helped, if they do not receive support, then perhaps a catastrophe will unfold. Russia might go further in its imperial ambitions and it can attack other countries.
When you reference Russian imperialism, I would note that one of the only interviews that we've heard that Vladimir Putin gave, he mentioned Poland frequently in that interview. Is it your view that if he is successful in Ukraine, Poland will be his next target?
Yes, we are convinced about that if Putin wins, if Russia conquers Ukraine, if it grabs Ukraine, if it enslaves the people of Ukraine and de facto, if it liquidates Ukrainian state as an independent and sovereign state, while Ukrainian people decide about themselves, then it will want to attack other countries. It will be willing to come back to the times of the Tsar's Russia, of the Soviet Russia. We have no doubt whatsoever that this is their ambition. They want to subjugate other nations. They want to prey on other nations, use their strength, their work, grab their natural resources. That is what they were doing over hundreds of years in history. And as we can see, this trend is revived in the Russia of today.
In that vein, you recently spoke about your willingness and Poland's willingness to host nuclear weapons as part of a sort of sharing program with NATO. What message do you think that sends Russia right now? That you are willing?
It is not any kind of new information. For many years, in fact, we have repeated that if NATO allies make such a decision to deploy within NATO or to broaden the program of nuclear sharing to include Poland, then we are ready. Because we can see that Russia is dangerous again, that Russia is deploying its nuclear weapons towards the West, to Belarus, to the Kaliningrad Oblast. And it's not the West which is provoking Russia. It is not NATO which is provoking Russia. On the contrary, it is Russia which is provoking the West. Russia, for many years, have been militarizing both the Kaliningrad Oblast and Belarus. And what NATO is doing today, what we are proposing that NATO does today, is only and exclusively a response to Russia's offensive policy. And the brutality of that policy is visible in Ukraine today.
Is that any closer to actually happening? Because you mentioned it's not brand new information. I know you just recently gave an interview, but you had said it a few years ago as well. Is it any closer to actually happening under the program that you referenced?
We raise this topic in our conversations with the allies. There are no decisions in this regard which would have been taken anywhere. I want to deny all the claims that some decisions have been made on this one. I have not participated in making any such decisions, and I don't know anything about such decisions. So responsibly speaking, I can say there are no such decisions in place. But we are declaring our readiness, and just as we say that there is a need to increase defense spending, and as a result, boosting the defense potential of NATO member states, of their readiness, in the same way, we are also saying about this, because if Russia deploys its nuclear weapons, then NATO should respond to that.
Understood. I want to ask you a bit about your visit specifically here to Canada. You mentioned defense spending. I'll get to that in a moment. You're here at an energy conference, and I have spoken to a number of other European leaders in the past few months about Canadian energy in particular and efforts underway in Europe to wean itself off of any kind of dependence on Russia. Poland has been largely successful in that so far. I'm wondering, though, when it comes to, in particular, liquefied natural gas, if that is a Canadian product Poland is interested in.
Oczywiście, że tak.
Of course, yes. If only Canada is ready to supply its LNG gas to Poland, we have got our LNG terminal in Świnoujście right now. It has got reloading capacities. We're extending them. We are extending the terminal. And we also have plans to set up another LNG terminal in the port of Gdańsk. If Canada offered its LNG to us, and if this gas could be bought attractively at attractive prices, well, we have been receiving gas from US companies. We have been receiving gas also from Qatar. In the same way, we would be ready to negotiate, to talk, and to accept Canadian gas as well. Even more so that there is an investment connected with one of the LNG terminals on the eastern coast of Canada, and there is our PKA Orlen, our concern, our company participating in that.
Did this issue come up at all in your meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
Rozmawialiśmy również o...
We discussed also the energy issues. I am very hopeful for cooperation in the area of hydrogen. Right now there is a hydrogen convention going on. It started in Edmonton. We are the third EU producer of hydrogen and the fifth largest in the world. So our potential in producing hydrogen is immense. We would like the hydrogen production in Poland to get greener, So we want to switch from the so-called gray hydrogen, we want to switch to green hydrogen. This process is ongoing in Poland right now, but also this is one of the reasons why we participate in such events, to share experiences, to talk. So we invite all Canadian investors to come to Poland, also to have a look at the development possibilities in our country and generally in our part of Europe.
On the issue of defense spending, you are the chief proponent of raising that as a portion of GDP to 3% among NATO allies. Canada just laid out a path to get to 1.76%. There is no path yet set out to get to 2%. Does that concern you at all, and did you convey that concern to the Prime Minister?
Przede wszystkim trzeba powiedzieć.
First and foremost, I need to say one thing. My point is also to strengthen a certain trend. A trend to make sure that defense spending is growing. In NATO countries, in the democratic countries, all the NATO member states are democratic countries, it is not such a simple thing, because in a sense, this is a decision of the general public to increase defense spending. The authorities, as a matter of fact, need to have a public approval to increase defense spending. And this is always a political question, a political problem. That is why I appreciate very much the fact that recently the Canadian authorities made a decision to increase defense spending once again, because this is the right trend.
Will you, President, have any challenge in convincing your allies to keep that trend, to amplify it, to reach the goals that you set out, in order to quash somebody who has been characterized as, in the form of Vladimir Putin, flouting the rule of law and suppressing human rights, when there are people in Poland who have accused you of doing the very same?
First of all, let us start by saying that today in Poland, everybody is most concerned about the security of our homeland, about avoiding any attack, just as Ukraine was attacked. And today this is one of the fundamental concerns that we are having in Poland, the security matter. We have a war started by Russian aggression behind our eastern border in Ukraine. We have got a hybrid attack on the Polish-Belarus border, and this is what the biggest concern of the Polish people today, to make sure that we're able to defend ourselves against Russian imperialism. We do not want the Russian mir.
And I understand, of course, that that's the chief concern, but they have raised concerns about your reforms, for example, to the justice system, and the EU saying that that undermines the independence of it.
Pani redaktor, jeżeli...
If anybody is following what's going on in Poland, then they know that the European Commission was doing big problems in terms of reforming the justice system, which we were conducting in Poland. But let me say the following. Today we are doing what belongs to us. To me, as President of Poland, I've been the President for 9 years. The most important thing is to build the security system. I have been building the system for 9 years now, throughout the first term in office. Then I was re-elected by my compatriots, and now I'm in my second term. In 15 months, I will finish my presidential service, and I firmly believe that thanks to different actions, thanks to good cooperation with partners, international partners, with the United States, with Canada, and with other countries, I will be able to peacefully give my office to the one who will be elected by the Polish people in universal elections as president. I will be able to give them a Poland which is a safe country, which is developing its defensive systems, Poland which is heading in the right direction.
Okay, I'm out of time. I will leave it on that note, Mr. President. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Dziękuję
Thank you.
bardzo.
Dziękuję.
Thank you.